Hello and welcome everyone to the final cut. Now I'm going to dive into the first episode of Chucky, the TV series. Now I'm not the biggest Child's Play fan. As time has gone on, I've grown to appreciate the films a little bit more. I can definitely sit down and watch them and get into them, and I do like the character and a lot of the lore and stuff like that, but I'm not like so heavily invested. But I do still want to see it succeed, and I was looking forward to the series and hoping that they can actually get something going with it. And like a lot of people, that last film, Cult of Chucky, they brought me back with Curse. I'm like, okay, great. I like the tone of like those first three films and going back to that. And then Cult of Chucky came out, and then they kind of went back to the whole just like, what are you doing? Like Don Mancini, I would very much compare to the likes of a George Lucas. Like when George Lucas went back and did the prequel films, he went a little too far in some places, as he literally was quoted in that video clip, if you've seen it, where they screened the film of The Phantom Menace. And I feel like that's the same thing with Don Mancini. I feel like he is someone who has a lot of creative ideas and is a very creative person. But unless you have someone else there to kind of help reel in your ideas and to really execute them the way that they should be executed, then you kind of go off the rails and you lose yourself. And he has very much proven himself to be that with Seed prior, and then it was Cult of Chucky, because Bride was great, Seed not so much, and then you had Curse of Chucky, brought it back around, and then you went a little too far with Cult. Now, going into all of that, the idea of multiple Chuckies, it's intriguing, but at the same time, I feel like that takes away from a lot of what's been built up in the whole series thus far, and kind of takes away some of the tension of like him trying to get out of the body and to get into a real body, and the limitations of that. But when you have multiple dolls, it's just kind of like, does that work? I don't know. And then basically splitting his spirit up into multiple dolls, like how much is he aware of all the other events that the dolls are going through? How much control I feel like it opens up just a giant can of worms, and it leaves you thinking, what can you really do with that concept without going too far? And so going into this series, I wanted it to succeed. And as we got a little bit more looking into it, I'm like, okay, it's looking pretty good. It's looking like it could have a pretty good balance of humor and thrills and all of that stuff. Now, having come off of the first episode, I must say they brought me back around yet again. Where they lost me with Cult, they brought me back with this one. I felt like, comparing to previous films like Bride of Chucky, I feel like the humor is perfectly balanced. I feel like the suspense factor, the build up to a lot of moments actually works, considering budgetary constraints, especially for the franchise at this point in time and being on television. The look of the doll, stuff like that, I feel like is good. I do feel like it definitely, compared to what it could have been, I have to give him some credit for actually being able to make the doll look relatively good. Although there are some scenes where he's alive and active, and I've seen him in the ads, I still feel is a little, I don't know. Something about it's still a little bit off, but I'm not going to hold that against it completely. I definitely don't feel like he's, of course, as threatening as what he's looked in like those initial films. I feel like that's true, like kind of creepiness factor is kind of gone, but that's not to say you still can't have suspense and still exciting moments and kills and all that stuff. But for what it's worth, I feel like that so far is all looking pretty good. Now, as far as the characters of this show, the kid that we're following, I felt like I liked him pretty instantly, as well as a lot of the other side characters. I do feel like they are kind of intriguing, and I do look forward to seeing how all this is going to unfold, especially knowing that the series is meant to focus on dolls and in different parts of the country, I suppose. And I guess the second season is probably going to be focusing on newer victims and all of that stuff. But for right now, this season is going to be focusing on all these characters. And how all of this is really going to unfold is still a big question, especially going into the past of Charles Lee Ray. Is that going to work? Is that needed? Is it neat? Probably not. But if they can make that work, then I'll applaud them for it. But so far, I'm still just kind of on the fence, like, well, what can we expect? Because we really got next to nothing in the first episode alluding to that. When we got the shot at the beginning of the end, him just kind of like as a little kid peeking in and just kind of going up to his mom, and then you see them together, and that's basically it. You don't get a lot of that. But as far as like the main characters and focusing on this kid, I was invested too. And there are some people who could say that, you know, focusing on this kid and his sexuality and all this other stuff could be ham-fisted, in which I feel like in a lot of things, this stuff is just kind of forced and it's not genuine, so it doesn't feel authentic and it just feels like it's forced. But knowing who Don Mancini is, knowing how much he does care about his own work and for what was executed in this first episode as far as following this kid and getting into his life and all that stuff, I didn't have a problem with it. It felt very natural. I don't know how everything's going to play out going forward. If it's feel like they're going to be focusing too much on the wrong things as opposed to the actual characters and their situations and all that stuff. That is also a bigger question that could, you know, we'll just have to kind of wait and see how it all plays out. And that goes for all the other elements of this show. But like I said, for the most part, they brought me back around. It really is just kind of like a flip-flop of this franchise as to, oh, you did a good one here, bad one, good, bad. Now this is a whole series. We don't know what's going to happen. They said they're already looking at doing the second season. So that I feel like though that goes to show that, do they really know what the overall direction is going to be? Like, knowing that potential second season could not happen, especially being involved with the Sci-Fi Network. They tend to cancel a lot of things, and I know it's also in production with USA Network. So with that said, what the future of this is actually going to be and how certain it is, because to be perfectly honest with you, like I said, I can appreciate the franchise actually having longevity in its continuity as opposed to others that have been rebooted. And yes, we did get the one remake, but this being in a unique situation where the original continuity is still going on, because it's gone from theaters to straight to video to TV series, which, yeah, that's technically very much a decline. But at the same time, though, I can still appreciate knowing that they have the drive and they have still enough creativity to kind of keep it going. But I feel like with this character, this concept, I feel like at the end of the day, we need to be building towards an actual end game with this. Because for what it is, I feel like the character of Charles Lee Ray, especially in those initial films, he's very much a dark character. He is like Freddy Krueger in the sense he'll have a sense of humor. He'll throw out these one-liners here and there. But I do feel like he had, initially at least, had that more sense of demented feel to him in a way. Like, I know you could probably compare the two, but for me personally, I always felt like I said, originally speaking, knowing how much he just screwed up this kid's life and just how demented of a character he actually is, I feel like, yeah, as horror fans, you go to watch the villain, you go to watch them create a body count, you go for the thrills, all that stuff. But I felt like, initially speaking, he was never a character to truly root for in that aspect. And I feel like overall, as a grand story, and they kind of played it more into like the whole, you can have more fun with them kind of jumping in like Friday the 13th with Jason and those later Freddy films where you can kind of get behind them a little bit more. It's like, yeah, sure, it's still dark in nature and aspects, but you can kind of have more fun with the character as opposed to fully rooting against them. And that's how I felt before, where I feel like the character eventually needs to get his comeuppance like as a final end game, and then eventually you could maybe like do a sort of reboot and then go into a new stage of stories or something like that. And that's how I've kind of felt about it for a while, if you get what I'm saying. And I felt like with this series, and not, I don't know if they fully know. Does Don Mancini, does he have an idea to kind of, especially with all these newer characters, and now he's in Nika's body and all of this, what's going to come of all of it? You know, how many seasons are we going to get? Is Charles going to finally be ended? Like, is he gonna be defeated once and for all? And I feel like this is the type of character that, in a sense, kind of needs an ultimate defeat at some point in time. But I know that's neither here nor there. Just kind of enjoying the ride of the series. And like I said, so far, this first episode I've enjoyed, and I look forward to the rest of it. I hope it sticks to landing by the time it's all said and done. But we'll just have to wait and see. But just to kind of give my general thoughts on the whole franchise and what I feel like should come of it and what could come of it, I will just have to wait and see. But anyway, I've rambled long enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe if you would. It would be greatly appreciated. We will be doing more content like this and evolving the channel, hopefully, and just having fun with it. And we'll see where it all goes. But thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.